Ever pondered about the economic evolution of India and Saudi Arabia from 1948 to 2023? Today we delve into the economic history of these two nations. In 1948, India had just gained independence and was charting its own economic course. The country embraced a mixed economy, balancing the principles of socialism and capitalism. This approach involved both public sector dominance in strategic industries and private enterprise in other sectors. As a result, India's GDP witnessed a steady growth, albeit at a relatively modest pace. On the other side of the Arabian Sea, Saudi Arabia was embarking on a different economic journey. In the late 40s, the discovery of oil transformed the country's largely nomadic economy into an oil-based one. The revenue from oil exports led to a significant surge in Saudi Arabia's GDP, positioning it as an economic powerhouse in the Middle East. The period between 1948 to 1973 was a time of significant transformation for both nations. India, with its mixed economy, was trying to balance growth with social equity. The country made significant strides in sectors like manufacturing, agriculture, and services, contributing to a steady increase in its GDP. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia was riding on the crest of the oil wave. The oil boom of the 70s further propelled Saudi Arabia's GDP, making it one of the wealthiest nations in the world per capita. As we can see, both nations embarked on unique economic paths, with India focusing on a mixed economy and Saudi Arabia becoming an oil powerhouse. Fast forward to the 70s and 80s, both countries experienced significant economic changes. In India, the 1980s marked a period of economic reforms. The government embarked on a path of slow liberalization, moving away from the previously held socialist-inspired economic model. The focus was on reducing regulation and stimulating the private sector. Fiscal policies were implemented to reduce the budget deficit, and efforts were made to attract foreign investment. India also began to open up its markets to international trade, breaking away from the insular approach of the past. This shift was a crucial step towards the economic liberalization that would come in the early 90s and set India on a path of rapid growth. On the other side of the Arabian Sea, Saudi Arabia was experiencing its own economic transformation. The 1970s oil crisis had catapulted the nation into unprecedented prosperity. As one of the world's leading oil producers, Saudi Arabia reaped the benefits of skyrocketing oil prices. The country's gross domestic product saw a substantial increase, and the wealth was used to fund massive infrastructure projects, improve social services, and even diversify the economy. The oil boom transformed Saudi Arabia from a desert kingdom into a significant global player. However, this period also brought challenges. In India, the reforms of the 80s were not without controversy. Critics argued that the pace of change was too slow and that more radical measures were needed. In Saudi Arabia, the oil boom led to a heavy reliance on oil revenues, making the economy vulnerable to fluctuations in global oil prices. Despite the challenges, the economic reforms in India and the oil boom in Saudi Arabia during this period had profound impacts. They shaped not only the economic landscapes of these countries but also their social and political structures. These reforms and oil booms set the stage for the future economic trajectory of both nations. The 90s brought about a wave of liberalization in India, while Saudi Arabia dealt with the implications of the Gulf War. India in the early 90s faced a severe economic crisis, which prompted it to open its doors to liberalization, privatization, and globalization, widely referred to as the LPG model. This radical shift in policy, under the guidance of then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, brought about a transformative change in India's economic landscape. The Indian economy began to shift from a closed, centrally planned system to a market-oriented one, promoting competition and inviting foreign direct investment. This paved the way for the rapid growth of India's GDP in the following years, transforming India into one of the world's fastest-growing economies. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia, a country rich in oil reserves, was dealing with its own set of challenges. The Gulf War in the early 90s had a profound impact on Saudi Arabia's economy. The war disrupted oil production, leading to volatility in oil prices. This had a direct impact on Saudi Arabia's GDP, given the nation's heavy reliance on oil revenue. Moreover, the cost of participating in the war and hosting allied forces put a significant strain on the country's finances. The aftermath of the Gulf War also led to a shift in Saudi Arabia's economic policy. The country started diversifying its economy, reducing its dependence on oil, and investing in other sectors like tourism and entertainment. This shift, known as Vision 2030, was a proactive measure to safeguard the economy against future oil shocks. These events significantly influenced the GDP growth of both countries, setting them on different paths. As we entered the 21st century, both India and Saudi Arabia faced new economic challenges and opportunities. In India, the dawn of the millennium heralded the era of technology. The IT industry experienced explosive growth, becoming a significant contributor to the nation's GDP. This tech boom created a myriad of opportunities, from job creation to foreign direct investment, bolstering India's economic standing. Simultaneously, India grappled with challenges such as bridging the digital divide and managing the socio-economic implications of rapid urbanization. On the other side, Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, faced a different set of puzzles. The fluctuating oil prices and the increasing global push towards renewable energy sources posed a challenge to the oil-dependent economy. In response, Saudi Arabia launched Vision 2030, an ambitious blueprint for economic diversification and development. The plan aims to reduce the kingdom's dependency on oil, develop public service sectors such as health, education, infrastructure, recreation, and tourism, and construct a dynamic and sustainable economy. The rise of the BRICS bloc, with India as a key player, signaled a shift in global economic dynamics. This group of emerging economies strives to reshape the world economy collectively. However, the road to this aspiration is fraught with challenges, including significant structural and behavioral differences among member countries. Meanwhile, the expansion of the BRICS bloc to include Saudi Arabia among other nations further complicated the global economic landscape. While adding geographic diversity, the inclusion of crisis-ridden countries raised questions about the selection criteria and the challenges of consensus building within the bloc. These developments continue to shape the economic landscape of both nations. From 2018 to 2023, both nations navigated through economic challenges and sought to strengthen their economies. India, with its robust and diverse economy, started to look towards new oil avenues. This strategic move led to an increase in purchases of Russian oil, a significant development that undoubtedly had an impact on its gross domestic product. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia, an influential player in the global oil market, sought to extend its influence even further. The country was accepted into the BRICS bloc of emerging economies, joining the ranks of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This expansion aimed to increase geographic diversity and add influential members, particularly from the Gulf region. However, the inclusion of Saudi Arabia raised questions about the selection criteria, given the economic disparities among the member countries. Despite these concerns, the expansion underscored the challenges of consensus building within the BRICS bloc and added another dimension to the economic landscape. The BRICS grouping, now expanded to include Saudi Arabia, aims to reshape the world economy collectively. But achieving these ambitious goals may be unlikely due to significant structural and behavioral differences among the member countries. The lack of homogeneity within the BRICS Plus, including economic, political, and cultural disparities, hinders their ability to act collectively. Despite these challenges, the expansion of the BRICS bloc and India's strategic oil decisions signify a shift in the global economic landscape. These developments have profound implications for the future, promising exciting opportunities and potential challenges. As we look towards the future, both India and Saudi Arabia continue to evolve and adapt, shaping their respective GDP growth trajectories.